To most people today, pretty much every TurboGrafx-16 game is a hidden gem. Despite this being the first 16-bit console on the market, the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis completely dominated in the West, relegating the TurboGrafx-16 to a weird Japanese oddity. Despite this, there have certainly been classics on the system: Bonk's Adventure, R-Type, and Newtopia, to name a few. This video is dedicated to exploring some of the games that even those familiar with the PC Engine might not have heard of, the underappreciated gems on the system that are worth seeking out. Victory Run. This is a sprite-scaling racing game sort of in the same vein as Rad Racer or OutRun, but with a significantly different pace. While the gameplay is largely the same, with an emphasis on weaving through traffic and clearing checkpoints to get more time, Victory Run is more of a long-haul driving game. Before you begin your journey, you stock up on replacement parts for your car, and as you progress through the linear road trip, you are given the option to replace certain parts as they get damaged. The terrain you'll be driving on is indicated by the map, and there's a day-night cycle. All these details add to making this feel like a real journey rather than an immediate arcade racer. And it's kind of a shame that there even is a time limit. It doesn't feel necessary as the game so excels in its cross-country driving and equipment management mechanics. The game really doesn't need that archaic holdover from the arcades. Otherwise, Victory Run feels like a truly distinct racing game in this style, with progressive gameplay mechanics that distinguishes it from other similar races. As I mentioned the series earlier, I thought I'd give an honourable mention to the TurboGrafx port of OutRun. As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm a huge fan of this series, and the OutRun port for this system is amongst the best home console versions of the arcade original. This is by no means a hidden gem. The OutRun series was and still is a very popular arcade racing game, but this port of the original OutRun is absolutely outstanding and not discussed enough. This was easily the best way to play the game on a home console until the Sega Saturn port. For comparison's sake, here's the TurboGrafx-16 version alongside the Genesis version. It's quite astonishing how much smoother this version runs, given it was originally a Sega arcade game, and by all accounts the Genesis was a more powerful system. OutRun is a must-play for the TurboGrafx-16, but this is a video for hidden gems, so moving on. Dragon's Curse. Dragon's Curse is a remake of the Sega Master System game Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap. The Wonder Boy series is definitely an iconic early video game franchise, and there's been enough interest in this entry in particular that it received a beautifully animated remake just last year. But due to it dropping the Wonder Boy name, and it being sandwiched between two more popular versions of the same game, Dragon's Curse for the TurboGrafx-16 isn't too widely discussed. This is a shame, as before the recent remake, the TurboGrafx port was the best way to play the game. The story begins in a way reminiscent to Symphony of the Night. You are this incredibly powerful human who can tear his way through enemies. After fighting your way through the castle and defeating the boss, you are cursed and transformed into a dragon. This doesn't really sound like a curse, but like Symphony of the Night, your stats are significantly lowered, which gives you an incentive to head out on your adventure to try and regain some of your strength. To transform back into a human, you have to defeat a number of bosses and collect a magical cross. And with each boss you unlock a new animal you can transform into, each with unique abilities. As a result, the gameplay never grows stale, as you gradually unlock new transformations with interesting new powers which each traverse the levels in a different way. This is on top of the characteristic simple and charming art style, fast-paced combat and proto-Metroidvania level design that the Wonder Boy series is famous for. This game did a lot that would later be imitated by more popular games, and it's executed incredibly nicely in this enhanced TurboGrafx-16 port. Shockman. Shockman is kind of a Mega Man clone with a greater emphasis in various different areas. While you don't unlock new weapons as you progress and fight various special bosses in appropriately themed levels, Shockman has a more prominent story, two playable characters with unique special attacks, and shoot 'em up stages to further add variety. The levels and bosses aren't as distinctly themed, but the boss designs are more elaborate and diverse. There are huge differences between Shockman and the Mega Man series, but ultimately they play in a very similar way. You play as a cyborg with a laser cannon arm with the ability to charge attack. There's as much emphasis on running and gunning as there is on platforming. The influence from Mega Man is very obvious, but to its credit there is enough distinguishing Shockman to give it unique advantages over the Mega Man series. As much as you could argue that it's derivative, There are aspects of this game that make it superior to the series that it's borrowing from. Shockman is more than just Mega Man on the TurboGrafx-16, but a twist on the formula which uses its new direction to craft its own identity.
Before I continue, I need to warn you that the umlaut in the title of the next game threw me off, so my pronunciation sounds dumb. I hope you are enjoying the video so far. Smash that MFing like button if you are.
Märchen Maze. Märchen Maze is an interesting fusion of a shoot 'em up and a platformer. The game is played from a top-down perspective, and your objective is to travel up through the level. Your path to the end is swarming with enemies, most of whom fire shots constantly. Had this been a traditional shoot 'em up, it would have been quite a bullet hell, but as you're taking control of a human on platforms, you have the freedom to jump over enemy fire and take the levels at your own pace. The bullet hell design philosophy of the game is especially exhibited during the hectic boss battles, but again, with the traditional controls of a platforming game, it's not too difficult to avoid attack. And getting hit doesn't result in your character taking damage like a traditional shoot 'em up, but it pushes her back, and you only lose a life when you're pushed off a platform. Likewise, most enemies can only be killed the same way, so combat isn't so much about constantly firing at enemies, but positioning yourself in such a way to shoot them off the platform while making sure that you're never vulnerable. The fusion of genres not only makes the chaotic gameplay manageable, but adds to a game that is already very unique. You play as a little girl in what looks like a maid outfit. There are elements of the story that alludes to Alice in Wonderland. Enemy and boss designs range from cutesy and innocent to dark and sinister. There's such a weird combination of ideas in the story and art design that the odd fusion of gameplay genres feels right at home. How unique this game is to play is matched by how bizarre it is to look at, and to that extent the game does have a rather harsh and abstract exterior, but it's undoubtedly one of the best playing games on the TurboGrafx-16, and definitely a unique title you won't find on many other consoles. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, show your support by dropping a like. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. Have a nice day. Peace.